What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down how to absolutely carry on Ana, because Ana is not only one of the most fun characters to play, she has some of the highest carry potential in the entire game, but I do think that a lot of people are messing up some really key aspects of Ana. So I'm going to be giving you some targeted tips, break down all of her abilities, specific tips and tricks on each one. So make sure you watch to the end, smash the like and subscribe, and go to the Game Leap website right now down below for in-depth advanced guides over every single character. So if you want to master Lucio, Zen, DPS, tank, we got everything that you possibly need, so go check it out right now down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, right off the bat, we got to talk about the primary fire on Ana, which some people already do wrong, right? How can you mess up primary fire? Well, first off, let's talk about the damage and healing numbers. So first off, it's going to be doing 70 damage over 0.6 seconds, which means most targets, you're going to be able to hit them 3 times and kill them, most 200 HP targets. That being said, if they got healing in between there, a lot of targets are going to stay alive, so definitely keep that in mind. Now, it's also going to be 70 healing over 0.6 seconds, which means a target that is actively being killed, sometimes your healing will not heal them fast enough to overcome whatever they're being dealt on, so there needs to be a little bit of foresight there. Now, the first thing that we got to break down about primary fire is scope versus unscoped, because unscoped is actually a projectile, which means it has travel time, and scoped acts completely different. Not only is it hit scan, but there's a lot of specific attributes about it that you need to understand. First off, it leaves a tracer, and what I mean by that is it's like a tracing round, you know, with like a real bullet where you can see the bullet fly through the air. The reason that that's important is, let's say you have a cross angle between yourself and your allies, but you're not peeking the enemy. If you zoom in and you keep healing your allies, the enemy team is going to be like, wait, what the Ana is around the corner, let's go jump on her, and they're gonna kill you. So you can't do that if you're trying to make sure that your position is unknown. So that's very important on Tracer. Now, of course, another really important thing you need to understand about being scoped, like I said before, is that your hit scan. And of course, it's gonna be easier to hit scan than projectile, especially from far away distances. If you're trying to like snipe a far, for instance, you're definitely gonna want to be zoomed in and get that hit scan aim where the bullet happens immediately upon registration between the crosshair and the target, not a travel time. That's just generally important. That being said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows talking about scoped, because it does give you a movement penalty. You move quite a bit slower when you're zoomed in rather than actually just aiming or shooting without zooming in, and that makes you susceptible to getting flanked a lot of the time because you're not moving that much, or getting sniped by things like a Hanzo, a freaking Ashe, or a Widowmaker. So there is some penalty there. Now, one of the most important things about primary fire, though, is how you manage your reload. Remember, you only have 12 shots with a 1.5 second reload, and I've seen it all too often where Anas are basically keeping their team alive on a very thin margin. Then they have to reload and like 2 people die, right? There needs to be a certain amount of foresight involved with you and communication with your team, telling them when you have to reload, how close you are to reloading. And this is really important information because some players on your team or tanks or even DPS, they expect you to just be constantly pumping them, and then when that cuts off, they end up feeding and dying. So you can manage that in some ways, but it's also important to communicate that as well, so they don't freaking expect it constantly and then they end up just feeding instead. Now, moving on to the next ability we gotta talk about Biotic Nade, one of the hardest carry single abilities in the entire game. So we gotta make sure to break it all down and that you know exactly how to use it to get the maximum impact. So it's gonna do 60 damage, it's gonna prevent heals for 4 seconds, or it's gonna do 100 healing, give a 50% bonus in heals from all allied sources, and then on top of that, it also lasts 4 seconds. Now, this is why in a pinch, Nade can be amazing for healing up a really low tank target, because not only can you burst them up with 100 healing, but because of the 50% extra heals, every single one of your shots is gonna do 140 healing, which really gets them up to max incredibly quickly. And in a pinch, that's what you definitely can do to keep them alive. That being said, the big question with Biotic Nade is aggressive versus defensive use. In my personal opinion, the way to carry the most is with aggressive use, getting fat nades, getting 3+ people a lot of the time, especially when your team is in a position to push up, is going to win you the team fight, especially if the enemy doesn't have anything like Immortality Field or some sort of ultimate. That being said, a lot of times you're going to need to use Biotic Nade in a lot of different ways. Like defensively, for instance, sometimes you need to use it just to heal yourself. Now, if you can position position, hit your sleep darts, have good mechanical skill to get divers off you, and of course peel, then that's great, and you can use your nades for more aggressive situations, but that's not always the case. A lot of times you want to use your nade as a way to not only deal damage to people on top of you, but heal yourself as well, because that's all you can do without freaking feeding and dying. But it is up to you to make it so those instances happen the least amount when the aggressive plays. Try to force those through as much as possible, as long as you're not going to get punished for it, because if you go through the entire game without making a single nade proactive play, then you're really missing out on a lot of value on the table. And sometimes, like I said, that 3-4 man nade could have won the team fight. Doesn't really matter anything outside of that. And of course, if you're hitting sleep darts and fragging enemies and positioning accordingly, you're going to be able to get more of those off. Then we're going to the next ability that we got to talk about in this video, an insanely high carry potential ability, and that's Sleep Dart. Now, Sleep Dart is a projectile, very fast moving. It's going to be doing 5 damage, which is pretty menial to say the least, and it's going to last 5 seconds. Now, one of the most important things that you could be doing with Sleep Dart when you sleep a target is call in third person who you're slept and who the slept person is on. And I know it's obvious, you slept them, you're Ana, they should be on Ana, but it's really important for you to say, hey, Tracer asleep on Ana. Don't say Tracer asleep on me. Don't kind of make it complicated for your allies. Make it as simple as possible. Tracer asleep on Ana, and it makes it really simple, and it allows your allies to come over and help you. That being said, expect a giant percentage of the time Sleep Dart to be basically like a 2-second sleep, because at the lower ranks, most of the time, that target is going to get instantly woken up, and then another percentage of the time, you're going to sleep them, but you're never going to have enough help to actually finish off that target. Sometimes in a really complicated team fight, you really want to just sleep a target and then leave them, position accordingly, realizing that they're going to wake up in 5 seconds, but in the meantime, you get to focus on your healing, you get to make a proactive nade play, and you could deal with that target when they wake up later, but you temporarily basically remove them from the fight. Now, that being said, one of the big questions that comes up with Sleep Dart a lot is how aggressively do you use this? Are you trying to sleep people across the map, or are you trying to use it defensively? Well, this honestly really depends on what your team composition is, what the enemy team composition is, and how confident you are mechanically when people come upon you. So, for instance, if the enemy is really, really far away and they're not in a position to dive you at all, if you throw a Sleep Dart out and it gets value, like it sleeps someone, maybe you don't finish them off, maybe you do, or if you just miss, it doesn't really matter, because by the time enemies route to you, you're gonna get it again and you're gonna be just fine. But I see way too many Anas go for these really high-risk Sleep Darts when an enemy is within jumping distance on them, and then they no longer have it to get out of that situation later. So it's definitely something that you need to kind of have a little bit of foresight for, and I honestly do think you should err on the side of being more cautious with it. I think it's far better as a defensive ability, especially at the lower ranks, where even if you hit a long distance sleep dart, most of the time that's not going to get finished up on. That's not going to be a kill for you. It's going to be hard for your team to identify that's what happened and focus them together. So having a defensive sleep dart is going to be a little bit more reliable in my personal opinion. Now, the last ability that we got to talk about is Nano Boost. Now, Nano Boost is going to do 250 healing. It's going to create a 50% damage buff and a 50% damage reduction on the target nanoed, and it's going to last for 8 seconds. Now, there are 4 different ways to actually utilize Nano Boost, and I'm going to talk about the different ways you could use them right and wrong in every scenario. So the first one is combo, and you're comboing like using Nano Blade. You're comboing like Reaper Nano, or maybe you're speed boosting in your Rein and you're nanoing him and he's going in. Now, that being said, in order to make the combo most effective, you need to be actively communicating, and you need to make sure that you are executing it. A great example of this is making sure that at all costs you get that nano off on your Genji, because sometimes Genjis will just go int in, but if they have the Nano Blade, they're going to be able to get a lot of kills. But if you don't nano them, not only are they going to waste their blade, but they're probably just going to go feed it and die, especially if they try to slash dash and they expect you to nano them. So communication is important, and following through is very important with combos no matter what you're doing. Now, the next way to use Nano Boost is actually to peel, and this is really effective when you have a target or an ally that is isolated and they're getting dove, and if you can give them more damage and damage reduction plus full health, like a McCree, for instance, getting dove by, I don't know, like a Monkey or a Genji, all of a sudden they're not only going to live, but they're going to be able to turn the matchup, and sometimes you can trade that Nano Boost for a straight up kill on that person that is trying to kill your teammate, which is definitely worthwhile, and it's typically going to be a great way to win that team fight with that first pick. The next way you could use Nano Boost is aggressive. This is where you're basically just throwing it on like your main tank or anyone on your team when you are going in really hard. You're going in for an aggressive team fight. You do not want to have to perfectly anticipate who to throw it on, and you want to start building up your next one. So often you throw it on the character that is going to get the most use out of it. That could be, you know, a Smurf on your team. That could be someone that's been popping off, or the main tank, the Genji that's flanking. It doesn't really matter who you throw it on. It's just adding a little bit more pressure and a little bit more damage to your initial engage. I don't really think that this is the best way to use Nano, but it definitely is fine in a pinch. And then the last way is when you're overwhelmed. And this one is really hard to master, but it's really important to know when and where to do it. Sometimes people really want to have that perfect Nano Boost, but there are many situations where you're fighting a really close team fight and your other support dies. And now you're an Ana that is really trying to keep your entire team alive, and it's very difficult. It's overwhelming. Everyone's dropping to low, and often the best thing that you could do is like Nano your Rein and keep him up, heal him up, and then pump him once, and then you can focus on the other targets. Nano can be a great way to kind of keep that level, you know, satisfactory to the point where no one is falling through, because a lot of times when you are like removing your attention from a target in a really hyperactive team fight, they're gonna die right away, and it's far better to use that Nano to keep your team up and alive than try to make this crazy play with it, especially if you don't have a dead set combo that is going to be able to overcome that numbers advantage. So using it overwhelmed, sometimes that's the best thing you could do. Nano a target, pump them once, and then go focus on healing the rest of your team. But if you want to know more, we have in-depth advanced VOD reviews on the Game Leap website that show you step-by-step exactly what you need to be doing when you play Ana on different maps, positioning, and much, much more. Go check it out right now down below. But thank you so much for coming by. If you have any questions, let me know down below. But thank you. I love your faces, and I'll see you next time.